Injured Cowboy wakes up with no memory and a super weapon strapped to his arm. The sun burned mercilessly overhead as Josiah Flint opened his eyes to a world he didn't recognize. Charred wood and ash surrounded him where a homestead once stood. His head throbbed with each heartbeat. 3 bodies lay scattered in the ruins, their faces peaceful in death. He tried to remember their names. Nothing came. A weight pulled at his right arm. Metal and crystal components formed an intricate device fused to his flesh. Gears and pipes wound around his forearm like mechanical vines. The contraption felt foreign yet familiar, cold against his skin. A burned photograph fluttered nearby. The image showed him smiling beside a woman and 2 children, the same bodies that now lay still in the ashes. His stomach churned as he stared at faces that should mean everything but felt like strangers. Hoofbeats thundered across the desert. 6 riders approached with badges glinting in the sunlight. The lead man wore a marshal's star and carried himself with dangerous authority. His eyes locked onto Josiah with recognition and disgust. Marshal Cornelius Pike dismounted and spat in the dirt. His men spread out in a practiced formation. Pike studied the mechanical device with interest before meeting Josiah's confused gaze. Deadeye Mordecai, Pike announced. Wanted for the murder of 17 innocent homesteaders across 3 territories. Josiah shook his head slowly. The name meant nothing. Pike's men bound his hands with heavy chains while he struggled to form words that wouldn't come. The metal device remained dormant against his arm. The procession through Salvation Creek felt like a nightmare. Townspeople lined the dusty street, shouting accusations and throwing refuse. Children hid behind their mothers' skirts. Shopkeepers spat curses. Everyone seemed to know his crimes except him. A young woman with intelligent eyes pushed through the crowd. Esperanza Vega moved with purpose despite her father's protests. She studied Josiah's wounds with a physician's attention to detail. Her brow furrowed as she noticed something others had missed. Easy Dunbar emerged from his saloon, confusion written across his weathered face. The barkeeper stared at Josiah with recognition but not fear. He started to speak, but Pike's glare silenced him. Easy retreated into his establishment, shaking his head. From his shop doorway, Dr. Matthias Chen watched the parade with barely concealed terror. His gaze fixed on the mechanical device. Sweat beaded on his forehead despite the desert heat. He quickly disappeared inside when their eyes met. The jail cell door clanged shut. Pike informed him of the hanging scheduled in 3 days. Through the barred window, Josiah watched railroad surveyors measuring land around the burned homestead. Their presence felt significant, though he couldn't understand why. More families packed their belongings and fled town. Word spread of a demon with a metal arm stalking the territory. Each report made the townspeople angrier. Each story made his situation more hopeless. The mechanical device pulsed faintly with his heartbeat. Whatever this thing was, it held answers he desperately needed. The second night brought unexpected visitors. Dr. Chen slipped through the shadows carrying a worn leather satchel. His hands trembled as he approached the cell bars. Esperanza followed close behind, her medical bag clutched tightly. "I created that device," Chen whispered. His accent carried traces of distant shores. It was meant to help miners extract precious metals safely. No explosives, no cave-ins. Josiah pressed against the bars. The mechanical arm responded to his movement with soft clicks and whirs. Chen's eyes filled with regret as he examined his creation. "Government agents stole my research 2 years ago. They promised peaceful applications." Chen's voice cracked. "I should have known better." Esperanza drew a vial of blood from Josiah's arm. Her analysis revealed traces of powerful chemicals designed to suppress memory formation. The drugs explained his blank mind but not his survival. Most test subjects died during the integration process. "You volunteered for the first trials," Chen continued. "Josiah Chen Flint, my adopted son. The most brilliant engineer I ever knew." Fragments surfaced like bubbles in deep water. Images of blueprints and calculations. Memories of designing safety mechanisms for dangerous mining operations. The mechanical arm wasn't grafted onto him. He had helped build it into himself. Dawn approached with the rumble of wagon wheels. Pike's men arrived earlier than expected. They claimed orders to transport him for trial in the territorial capital. Their nervous glances suggested different intentions. The transfer began under heavy guard. Pike rode alongside the prison wagon with obvious satisfaction. The mechanical device remained cold and lifeless against Josiah's skin. Hours passed in uncomfortable silence as they traveled deeper into uninhabited territory. A gunshot cracked the morning air. The wagon jerked to a sudden stop. Pike's men shouted warnings about an ambush that never materialized. The marshal's hand moved toward his weapon with practiced ease. "No witnesses out here," Pike muttered. "Much cleaner this way." Terror flooded Josiah's system. The mechanical device suddenly blazed with blue-white energy. Neural pathways awakened that had been dormant for months. His consciousness merged with the machine's sophisticated systems. The device didn't fire projectiles. It manipulated metal at the molecular level through precise electromagnetic fields. Josiah understood its functions with startling clarity. Knowledge flowed back like water through a broken dam. His shackles dissolved into fine powder. The wagon's iron fittings reshaped themselves into twisted sculptures. Wheels locked as their metal components fused together. Pike's men stumbled backward as their weapons became useless lumps of reformed steel. Josiah rolled from the disabled wagon and sprinted toward the rocky hills. The device responded to his thoughts with increasing sophistication. Memory fragments revealed years of collaboration with Chen on mining innovations. His engineering background explained the intuitive understanding of complex systems. He found shelter in an abandoned mine shaft. The mechanical arm interfaced directly with his nervous system through microscopic filaments. Each recovered memory brought greater control over its capabilities. This wasn't a weapon strapped to his body. It was an extension of his own intellect and creativity. Easy Dunbar appeared at the mine entrance as sunset painted the desert red. The saloon keeper carried supplies and wore the expression of a man harboring dangerous secrets. Behind him came Esperanza with her medical equipment. "Been waiting 2 years for you to remember," Easy said simply. He led them deeper into the mine where oil lamps revealed a hidden sanctuary. 3 other people waited in the shadows, their faces marked by familiar surgical scars. "Failed integrations," Easy explained. "Chen's research produced only one success. You." The other survivors told fragmented stories. Government agents had used them as test subjects before the memory suppression proved effective. Now they served as controlled weapons, carrying out attacks they couldn't resist or remember clearly. Esperanza examined each survivor with professional thoroughness. Her medical training came from years at an Eastern women's college before returning to serve frontier communities. Few people possessed her combination of advanced education and practical experience. A traveling journalist materialized from the darkness. Temperance Blackwood carried notebooks filled with meticulous observations. Her investigation had traced unusual weapons across 3 territories. Each incident preceded railroad expansion by mere months. "Helena Ashford owns the railroad company," Temperance explained. Her background as a former slave had taught her to recognize patterns of exploitation others missed. She's been staging massacres to drive families off valuable land. The conspiracy stretched further than anyone imagined. Marshal Pike provided legal cover, while controlled test subjects carried out the attacks. Dr. Chen's stolen research had been weaponized to serve corporate greed rather than human progress. Chen emerged from the shadows carrying modified versions of his original designs. His years of exile had been spent developing countermeasures for his stolen technology. Guilt over his creation's misuse had driven him to find solutions. "There's going to be another attack," he announced grimly. "The Harvest Festival. Pike needs martial law to seize the remaining homesteads." Josiah felt the weight of impossible choices. He could flee with his recovered memories and live safely in obscurity, or he could risk exposure to save innocent lives. The mechanical device pulsed with potential energy, awaiting his decision. The others looked to him for leadership he didn't feel qualified to provide. His engineering mind began calculating possibilities. Violence would only create more violence. But precision and timing might accomplish what force never could. The Harvest Festival was tomorrow. Time was running out for everyone in Salvation Creek. The abandoned mine became a war room as dawn approached. Maps covered every available surface. Temperance spread her documentation across a makeshift table, while Chen assembled delicate instruments from his hidden workshop. The scope of Helena Ashford's conspiracy emerged like a poison revealed in clear water. 17 massacre sites across 3 territories. Each location later purchased at drastically reduced prices by shell companies. Railroad surveys followed within weeks. The pattern painted a picture of calculated cruelty that made Josiah's mechanical arm hum with suppressed energy. "She's built an empire on manufactured fear," Temperance said. Her journalism had uncovered financial records linking Ashford's railroad company to every suspicious land transaction. Former slaves like herself understood systematic oppression better than most. Easy revealed the full extent of his secret network. 5 other survivors of Chen's research program lived in hidden locations across the territory. Each bore the scars of failed integrations. All remained susceptible to control through chemical manipulation and neural triggers. "They don't remember what they do," Easy explained. "Wake up covered in blood with no idea how it got there." Chen's guilt weighed heavy in the lamplight. His mining innovations had been twisted into tools of corporate expansion. The weapon integrated with Josiah's arm represented years of research intended to make dangerous work safer. Instead, it enabled new forms of violence. Esperanza studied brain scans of the other survivors using equipment Chen had smuggled from his former laboratory. The failed integrations showed consistent patterns of neural damage. Memory centers remained fragmented while motor control areas bore mechanical scarring. The successful integration didn't just preserve your memories, she told Josiah. It enhanced your cognitive abilities. You can interface with technology at levels the others can't achieve. The mechanical device responded to emotional states as well as conscious commands. Fear made it glow with warning energy. Anger caused the metal components to shift and reconfigure. Compassion seemed to unlock its most sophisticated functions. Helena Ashford arrived in Salvation Creek with a private railroad car and armed security detail. Her public persona radiated maternal concern for frontier families threatened by mechanical monsters. Behind closed doors, she met with Pike to finalize plans for the festival attack. "One more massacre should do it," Pike reported. "Territorial governor will declare martial law, then we can clear out the remaining holdouts." The controlled test subject had already been positioned in the hills overlooking town. Chemical triggers would activate at precisely noon when the festival reached maximum attendance. Families would gather to celebrate the harvest season and instead witness calculated horror. Josiah made his choice during the pre-dawn hours. Flight meant safety but condemned innocent people to die for corporate profits. His engineering mind had calculated a different approach. Precision could accomplish what violence never would. The plan required perfect timing and absolute trust between team members. Temperance would document everything for simultaneous transmission to newspaper networks across multiple territories. Chen would provide technical testimony about the weapon's true purpose. Esperanza would offer medical evidence of surgical manipulation and memory suppression. Easy coordinated with townspeople who remembered Josiah as a peaceful blacksmith rather than a notorious killer. Their testimony would contrast sharply with Pike's manufactured evidence. Truth had power when presented systematically and supported by credible witnesses. The mechanical arm underwent careful calibration during the final hours. Chen had designed it to manipulate metal at the molecular level through precise electromagnetic fields. The same technology that could reshape iron bars might disable another device without causing permanent harm to its unwilling host. "You'll need to interface completely," Chen warned. "Full neural integration carries risks. The connection might become permanent." Josiah accepted the possibility. Some prices were worth paying to protect innocent lives. His recovered memories showed a man who had always chosen service over self-preservation. That fundamental character hadn't changed despite months of manipulation. The festival began with traditional music and displays of local crafts. Children played games while their parents discussed crop yields and winter preparations. The atmosphere felt deliberately normal, as if happiness could ward off approaching danger. Helena Ashford mingled with the crowd, offering condolences for recent tragedies and promises of railroad protection. Her security team positioned themselves strategically around the town square. Pike's deputies maintained obvious presence while pretending to enjoy the festivities. Temperance established her documentation station with clear sight lines to every important location. Her camera equipment attracted curious glances but no suspicion. Former slaves had learned to work efficiently while remaining invisible to those in power. The controlled test subject moved through the hills like a sleepwalker following predetermined commands. His mechanical arm glowed with unstable energy as chemical triggers flooded his system. Memory suppression kept him unaware of his intended actions. Josiah felt the approaching confrontation through his enhanced neural connections. The device integrated with his nervous system detected electromagnetic signatures from similar technology. Distance and direction became clear through quantum entanglement between paired systems. High noon approached with deliberate inevitability. Families gathered around the festival stage for traditional speeches and community recognition. Children sat in front rows with faces bright with excitement. None suspected they had been positioned as unwilling participants in corporate theater. The attack would begin in minutes. Josiah emerged from concealment and walked toward the town square. His mechanical arm blazed with controlled energy as neural integration reached unprecedented levels. Every step brought greater clarity about what needed to be done. Truth would triumph over deception. But first, innocent lives had to be saved from weapons designed to serve greed rather than humanity. The controlled test subject emerged from the hills exactly at noon. His mechanical arm discharged wild energy that shattered windows and sent families screaming toward shelter. Children cried as their parents pulled them behind vendor stalls and wagons. The festival dissolved into chaos within seconds. Josiah stepped into the town square as panic swirled around him. His own device blazed with blue-white brilliance that outshone the desert sun. Neural integration reached levels Chen had never imagined possible. The mechanical arm became an extension of his will rather than a foreign attachment. "Stop him," Pike shouted to his deputies. "The real killer has returned," but Josiah ignored the guns trained on him. His enhanced consciousness interfaced directly with the other device through quantum entanglement between paired systems. Mathematical calculations flowed through his mind at impossible speeds. He located the specific frequency needed to override the other unit's control protocols. The rampaging test subject froze mid-attack. His weapon powered down as foreign commands overwhelmed the chemical triggers flooding his system. Confusion replaced programmed rage as suppressed memories began surfacing. He stared at his mechanical arm as if seeing it for the first time. "I remember," the man whispered. "They made me forget everything." Helena Ashford's carefully orchestrated plan crumbled before dozens of witnesses. Her security team moved to contain the situation, but found their weapons mysteriously jammed. Josiah's electromagnetic manipulation had fused firing mechanisms into useless lumps of metal. Temperance's documentation captured everything. Her camera recorded Helena's panicked orders to Pike and his fumbling attempts to regain control. Multiple newspaper networks would receive simultaneous transmissions within hours. The conspiracy would become national news by evening. "You're all under arrest," Pike declared desperately. "Conspiracy to commit murder and destruction of federal property." Dr. Chen emerged from concealment carrying boxes of technical evidence. His research notes proved the weapons were designed for mining applications before being stolen and weaponized. Medical records showed systematic memory suppression of unwilling test subjects. Esperanza provided testimony about the surgical scars and chemical traces in Josiah's blood. Her credentials from Eastern medical schools carried weight that frontier doctors couldn't match. The evidence painted a clear picture of institutional manipulation and abuse. Easy brought forward the other survivors who had been hiding throughout the territory. Their fragmented memories corroborated each other despite years of chemical suppression. All remembered volunteering for mining safety research before waking up as unwilling weapons. The crowd that had moments before cowered in terror now pressed forward with growing anger. They realized they had nearly executed an innocent man while the real criminals walked freely among them. Pike's authority evaporated as townspeople demanded answers he couldn't provide. Helena made a final desperate gambit. She offered substantial rewards for anyone who would arrest the dangerous criminals threatening public safety. Her railroad security moved to enforce her commands but found no support from local residents. "Show them what the device really does," Chen called out. Josiah approached a damaged vendor stall where broken metal fixtures lay scattered. The mechanical arm interfaced with the molecular structure of twisted iron. Instead of destroying, it began rebuilding. Bent rails straightened. Shattered hinges reformed into smooth functioning hardware. Broken became whole under precise electromagnetic manipulation. The demonstration proved the weapon's true purpose beyond any doubt. This technology could revolutionize mining and construction across the frontier. It represented progress and prosperity rather than death and destruction. Helena had corrupted beneficial research to serve her corporate expansion. Pike drew his sidearm in a final act of desperation. The weapon dissolved in his hands as metal components separated at the molecular level. He stood defenseless as federal marshals arrived from the territorial capital. Temperance's earlier telegrams had reached honest law enforcement. "Helena Ashford, you're under arrest for fraud, conspiracy, and the murder of 17 families," announced Marshal Thompson. His credentials came directly from Washington rather than corrupt territorial authorities. Helena's railroad empire collapsed within days. Stock prices plummeted as investors fled the scandal. Her vast land holdings reverted to original owners or became public domain. The corporate machinery built on manufactured fear ground to a permanent halt. The surviving test subjects underwent treatment at Chen's restored laboratory. Memory suppression gradually faded as neural pathways healed. Each man reclaimed his identity and freedom after years of manipulation. Some chose to remain in New Hope, while others returned to distant families. Josiah and Chen established a legitimate mining operation using the technology for its intended purpose. The first excavation revealed substantial mineral deposits beneath the town. Prosperity flowed from honest work rather than stolen land and manufactured terror. Esperanza became the territory's first licensed female physician. Her medical practice served families across hundreds of miles of frontier. The combination of Eastern education and Western experience made her invaluable to growing communities. Temperance's expose launched a federal investigation into frontier corruption. Her systematic documentation led to reforms in territorial governance and corporate oversight. Truth-telling became a weapon more powerful than any mechanical device. The town formally changed its name from Salvation Creek to New Hope. Citizens voted unanimously to honor their transformation from fear to prosperity. The Harvest Festival became an annual celebration of community resilience and mutual support. Josiah stood in the cemetery at sunset, his mechanical arm working with microscopic precision. Beautiful metal headstones rose from raw materials, each engraved with loving tributes to the family killed in his name. The device that had once made him a hunted man now created monuments to memory and healing. The weapon remained integrated with his nervous system but served only constructive purposes. Truth had proven more powerful than violence. Justice had emerged through dignity rather than revenge. New Hope flourished as a testament to the possibility of redemption.